Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hello. I'm going to wait a few minutes for everybody to come on while I enjoy. Hello and welcome. If you have any questions for me about mental health, anxiety, depression, hi there. I'm going to be answering. Good morning, good evening for some of you. I'm going to be answering all your questions today about anxiety and depression and how can you cope and how can you help a loved one that might be struggling with anxiety. Why, thanks everybody for the compliments. Thanks so much. So if you have a question about anxiety or depression or really any mental health question, just drop it where you see that little question mark to the right of the comments. And I am going to be answering your questions today. You've got a licensed psychotherapist at your beck and call this morning. If you don't know me, my name is Bianca Rodriguez, and I am a holistic psychotherapist. I'm a licensed therapist in Los Angeles, California, although this morning I'm joining you from Connecticut because I'm on vacation, but that's okay. I love VAHDAM so much and I love talking about mental health so much that I am live on my vacation, and I am a big fan of VAHDAM teas, and I love that they are doing this Be Well series all about wellness, everything from the mind to the body and to the spirit. And I think that's part of the reason why we found each other, is because I work in a holistic way, taking into account that you already are complete. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. Even if you have a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, or maybe you have a phobia, maybe you've experienced a depressive episode, or you have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be fixed. So let me jump in and just tell you a little bit about anxiety and depression. But first I need a sip of my tea. I'm a big fan of chai tea, and the chai vanilla tea that VAHDAM makes is my favorite. Okay. What is anxiety? Okay. So worry, okay? It is natural to worry about things, all right? Anxiety is like a form of worry. It's when you are kind of obsessively thinking about the future and what is going to happen in the future, and you are fearful. Okay, so anxiety has a huge component of fear, and you are fearful of what is to come in the future. So one of the most common anxiety disorders that we see is what we call generalized anxiety disorder. We call that GAD. And with general anxiety disorder, you have a lot of worry about a lot of different things. And the hallmark of anxiety is that you give things more worry and fear than they really warrant. So a person with social anxiety, that's fear of being judged poorly by others, right? When they go to a party, maybe they don't even go to a party, right? Because another characteristic of anxiety is avoidance. So, right, you know a lot of people, right? And some people really like parties, and some people kind of like parties, and some people are maybe that are really hate parties, right? But a party in and of itself, I'm talking about a normal party, right, is not an actual scary thing, right? Because you're probably not going to get hurt at a party or die at a party or get poisoned at a party, right? Those are things that would bring up real fears. So anxiety is fear on a subject that goes beyond what the situation really calls for. And that's really hard to live with, right? That's really, really hard to live with. So fear of the future, it could be a phobia of social situations, of airplanes, of spiders, of medical procedures, right? So that could be right. Those could be part of the things that you're worried about. Or you could have a general anxiety about all sorts of things, like, is my mom going to be okay? Did I do this all right? Did I send that email? Did I have a typo? Does so-and-so like me? Is my dog okay? They're itching a lot. I don't know what's going on, right? So that's what generalized anxiety disorder looks like. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, also falls in the realm of anxiety disorders, and that happens when you've experienced a trauma, which is when your life or your well-being really has been at risk, right? So a lot of the time we associate PTSD with veterans. So when veterans are fighting on the front lines, right, like their life really could be taken, or they could witness that happening to somebody else. So people who have been assaulted, sexual abuse, physical abuse, there's medical trauma. If you've ever been hospitalized and thought you were going to die, those could all lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's actually quite difficult to meet the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a lot of specific things that you need to be demonstrating to meet what we call the criteria for that diagnosis. That doesn't mean that you haven't experienced a trauma and are really struggling to cope with what happened there, and you might be experiencing some of the symptoms of PTSD, like intrusive thoughts. So that would be thinking about what happened when you don't want to be thinking about it. Could be nightmares. It could be avoidance of places, situations. It could be being triggered by things that remind you of that. So just know that if you've experienced a trauma, which is when you feel like your life or well-being is threatened, or you witness that, right? I used to work in the underserved community of Los Angeles a lot, where folks, there's a lot of gang activity. And so a lot of my clients, a lot of the youth had seen people being shot, mostly people being shot. And so that is also considered trauma. If you witness that, it could also be hearing stories. So if you're, God forbid, one of your family members was, with what's going on in Cuba right now, I'm of Cuban descent, right? So I have relatives that live there. And if I were to hear of something brutally happening to them, that could be also considered, could be traumatic, right? So know that anxiety disorders come in different shapes and sizes, different forms, but they're characterized by a fear, a bigger fear usually than is necessary, right? Because with trauma, the trauma already happened. It's really unlikely that it's going to happen again, but you're worried that it's going to happen again. And so then you have all of these different symptoms. We also find there's a lot of muscle tension and somatic symptoms with anxiety. Hang on, let me look at this question real quick. You guys, please. Oh, when someone okay, here we go. Well, we'll go into that in a second. Okay, so there's also a lot of other symptoms with anxiety, such as muscle tension, sweating, racing thoughts, sleep disturbances, restlessness in the body, like somebody who's like kind of twitching a lot. It could be anxiety. It could be attention deficit disorder. It could be, I don't know, maybe something physical is going on, right? But let's answer this question, and thank you so much for your question. I always appreciate when you guys are vulnerable and share. So let's see here. When someone talks to me, I get panic. Okay, so let's talk about a panic disorder, a panic attack versus an anxiety attack. A panic attack is when you start to have physiological symptoms like your heart is beating fast, you're dizzy. I used to black out when I had panic attacks. Hyperventilating. But when it's a panic attack, you really think you're going to die. Okay, so that's different than an anxiety attack. Both of them are terrible, and nobody gets an award for having, one versus the other, right? But a panic attack means that, yes, you have physiological symptoms that often make you feel like you're dying in the moment. Whereas an anxiety attack is just one step less than that. So yes, you could have the racing heart, you could have the sweating and the heart palpitations and the tremendous fear, and maybe you could get a little woozy, but usually you can kind of bring yourself down. It's just kind of not as severe as a panic attack. Either way, they're both horrible. Okay, that is a terrible way to live, my friend. I'm very sorry that you have that experience. What I will recommend is, if you are struggling with any of the symptoms that I'm talking about today, please get professional help. Please get professional help. A therapist, a psychologist, a counselor, a psychiatrist, right? You want to get professional help because this is affecting your quality of life. And that's another characteristic of an anxiety disorder, is that it inhibits your ability to function in the world, whether in work, whether in social situations, whether maintaining your hygiene, your home, paying your bills, whatever it is. It just impacts your ability to function. That to me is always like a flag that is like, it is time to seek professional help, and there is nothing to be ashamed of in seeking professional help. So what a therapist can help you do is they can help you learn how to manage your anxiety, primarily with what I work with a lot is breathing techniques. When you utilize the breath to calm down all the physical responses that are happening in the body, right? Then the emotions also start to come down. So that is helpful. Medication. Now, I am not a person that can prescribe medication, but I really like to destigmatize taking medication for psychological struggles. You don't have to be on medication forever. I usually say don't take medication and not do the therapeutic work. They're meant to go hand in hand. But what medication can do is it can lower the symptoms enough that you can practice what I call the coping tools. And the coping tools would be the learning how to manage your anxiety slowly but surely as you feel more confident managing your anxiety, testing those coping skills out in social situations, right? So that you start to get confident in your ability to handle things. Maybe this panic or about being around other people is stemming from something from your childhood, something from your past, right? And so the most important thing to do is to learn to be what I like to say is a good parent to yourself. And when you are having a hard time, like if you were 5, if you had a 5-year-old, you would say, don't do this alone. Let me help you, right? And in this case, I don't have the tools to help you do this. So let's find a professional that can help you. Now, mental health services, unfortunately, are hard to access for a lot of people around the world, which is an issue I'm very passionate about helping solve. But most communities have mental health centers where there are often like students who are training, and so the fee is a lot less, and they are being supervised by people who have experience. So you might be like, I don't want to talk to somebody who just got out of school. It's like, well, if you can't afford to go to somebody else, it's better than nothing is what I would say, because even though that therapist may not have a lot of experience, they have studied. Most people who become therapists are really interested in this stuff before they go to school, so that maybe they were in their own therapy and have experience in actually the real world, or maybe they worked as a tech in a rehab or whatever, right? So they probably have some experience. Maybe not, but usually that's what I found. And you can see a therapist for a low-cost fee that's being supervised by somebody who has a lot of experience and is very involved in your treatment. So my friend, I hope that was helpful. But really, I mean, I'm sorry you're experiencing that. That is really, really difficult. And knowing that it's possible to overcome that, I think, is one of the most important things. Everything is healable, no matter how difficult it is. But, human connection is just part of being human. We require human connection to be healthy. And if human connection brings up tremendous panic and anxiety for you, then let us get the help that you need so that you can have meaningful relationships, okay? I hope that was helpful. Okay. Group therapy is also very helpful. Now, that might be hard for this person who's struggling with panic, because just being in the group in and of itself might be so anxiety provoking. So one-on-one might be good. But groups are all often lower cost and a great way to work on mental health stuff. Okay, my friend, when I give interviews, I am nervous at that time. What can I do to please help? Okay, let me just go through this real quick, see if there's anything else. Let's see. Hello. Yes, drop your questions in the comments. Drop your questions below, you guys. I am here to help, to be of service. I am getting sweaty though. Ooh, it's hot in Connecticut. Okay. All right, interviews. This is a great question, because I do a lot of lives and interviews and stuff like that. So, okay. First of all, you know what I think is a very helpful technique to use when you're worried about a future scenario is to think about what is the worst case scenario. Now, the worst case scenario could be pretty bad. Right? Like the worst case scenario could be, could be like what's the worst case scenario, you guys, in an interview? I feel like the worst case scenario in an interview is like you trip and fall, you say something really terrible and don't get the job, you insult somebody, right, in the interview. So when you're worried about a specific situation, I usually will say, and I like to journal because journaling makes things that feel very big in your head, it makes them feel not so big. I don't know what it is about that process of externalizing it. And this does not have to be formal. You just get a piece of paper, you can write it down, okay? So, interview. What is the worst possible thing that could happen? Feel free to throw it in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about what's the worst possible thing that could happen in an interview. But let's say it's insulting the person and not getting the job, and maybe your reputation somehow gets affected by the fact that you said something, okay? Let me ask you this. Would you survive that? Would you live through that? Would you get through that? Yeah, probably. And one of the best things, one of my favorite things is that as you get older, is you start to realize that you have survived everything that you have been through. So I would imagine that if you were to mess up an interview, you would survive it. Now, you might be upset, you might be mortified, you might need to cry, you might need to, I don't even know what, hide in your room for 2 hours and feel terrible, but you wouldn't die, right? So that can take some of the fear out of the situation. Now, you don't want to stay in that place of just thinking about all the worst case scenarios. That's why I say write it down, get it out of your system, look at it objectively and be like, you know what? People have been through harder things. I've been through harder things. I would survive. And also, what is the likelihood that I would do that, right? It's like, are you a person who often says things that are insulting? I don't know, right? So then also being really realistic about, that is the worst case scenario, but, what's the likelihood that it's going to happen? Okay, that takes some of the energy out of it. Next, what you want to do is, I really like to do a activity that I call segment intending. I use a lot of visualizations with my clients and in my own life. So what you can do is prior to the interview, a day before, the morning before, but usually when you're feeling in a pretty good space. So maybe it's a day before, you're on a walk, you're working out, whatever it is, just a time where you feel kind of neutral. It is really a wonderful technique to do what I call pre-paving. And so why don't you take a minute to visualize how you want this interview to go. What is the best case scenario, right? Of how you'd like it to go. You wake up and you're feeling good, and maybe you have your tea, because I have tea every day. I don't have some tea right now. Vanilla chai, VAHDAM. Nailed it. Okay, so maybe you have your tea, you get dressed, you're feeling good. For me, it's I put my makeup on, let's say, and it's it looks good. I drive to the interview. There's no traffic. I go to the interview. I'm relaxed, right? So you visualize all this stuff prior to the interview. And I believe that kind of energetically sets you up to have a positive experience. Now, if you don't believe me, look at what Olympic athletes do, right? So Olympic athletes pre-pave. That's a huge part of their training, is that they go through the motions of what they're going to do on game day hundreds of times, so that really becomes the reality and it becomes really rote to them. So know that your mind is incredibly powerful. It's an incredibly powerful tool that you can use to set the stage for how you want things to be. Okay, next thing I would say you do, if you don't already meditate, meditation is the number one tool for learning to regulate your emotions, because what it allows you to do is it allows you to start observing your thoughts, and your emotions are only reactions to your thoughts. That's actually what they are. So, right, when you think this interview is going to go terrible, I'm probably going to suck at this interview, how do you feel? My body gets kind of tense. I feel kind of heavy. My head even hurts a little bit. And when I think, I'm going to go into this interview and I'm going to have an amazing experience, right? I'm going to go into this interview and I'm going to show up as my best and it's going to be wonderful, right? Then how do you feel? I already feel lighter in my chest. Whew, I just feel more, I feel more open, right? I just feel more in my body in a way that feels powerful to me, right? So your emotions happen in your body and they're reactions to your thinking. So know that when you decide to, when you meditate, you will learn. And meditation could be done however you want. You can use an app, you can take a class, you can do a walking meditation. Meditation is about finding what works for you. That's all you got to do. There's no right or wrong way to meditate. The only wrong way you meditate is by not meditating. That's the only way you can mess it up, right? It starts to give you space between your thoughts and that part of you that is able to observe those thoughts. And the part of you that's able to observe those thoughts then starts to go, oh, wait, who's observing the thoughts? I am not my thoughts. My thoughts are happening, right? It's like a ticker tape. It's like captions, right? They're going, they're happening, but I am not them, right? And there's something incredibly powerful about that, because in that space between the observer and the thought, you now get to make a choice. You get to make a choice and go, do I want to focus on that thought? Do I want to change that thought? Do I want to react to that thought? How am I reacting to that thought? Would I like that reaction to be different? So your thoughts about an interview are probably things like, I'm not going to get a job, I'm going to screw up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And those, right? Those are not really particularly helpful, nor are they true. That's the other thing. I really like to challenge thoughts and go, is that even true? Right? Like the worst case scenario, one, it lets you know, well, now I've taken out the fear of the unknown, in the sense of I've allowed myself to go there and go, well, this is the worst possible thing that could happen. So now it's not just in my head, like, what could happen? Oh my God, what am I afraid of? It's like not nebulous. You're concretizing it, right? And that makes you feel more in control. And then you also get to go, like, how likely is any of this stuff to happen anyway? It's probably not that likely, right? And then you get to go, well, why am I spending so much energy worried about this when it's probably not even going to happen, right? It's like worrying that aliens are going to come. Like, maybe aliens are going to come, but like I could spend every day worrying about that, or I could just not, because I don't know how likely that is to happen. It hasn't happened to me yet, as far as I know. So yeah, yes. Okay, let's see. We've got another question. I hope that was helpful. Oh, this is a great question. Ooh, this is a good one. Okay, dissociation. All right, friends. Whoa. I'm so sorry, you guys. You just fell over. I've got a little setup here to keep you right here on top of my, on top of this little box. Okay. Dissociation. What is dissociation? So a not so clinical way, but easy way to understand it is, dissociation is when you kind of go away in your head. So you kind of check out, right? It could look like just going blank. It could look like forgetting, like, maybe when you're driving, you might be like, how did I even get here? I don't even know. I mean, I know that sounds kind of scary because you're driving a car, but it's really kind of losing track of the here and the now. You sort of go away in your head, and it is a common symptom of trauma. So when you're experiencing something traumatic, one of the ways that your psyche tries to protect you is by dissociating, is by saying, this is so horrible, terrifying right now that we're just going to go away and kind of like blank out for a little while. When I work with folks, that have been assaulted, a lot of the time when we're working on the memory of the assault, they're not even in their body. They're actually an observer. They're like, I remember what happened, but I was outside of my body watching what was happening to me. And that is because, think about that. Your psyche is like, this is so terrifying, profound. Like, I could die. Like, I don't want to, I'm going to go away. Like, I don't even want to be witnessing this anymore. So after you've experienced a traumatic episode, especially if you have what we call complex trauma. Complex trauma is you've had a lot of different experiences of trauma. Maybe you grew up in a chaotic household, an abusive household. We consider that complex trauma because it's not a one trauma experience. You have lots of traumatic experiences on top of each other. It usually takes more time and treatment to pull those things apart. You may dissociate still now. So grounding techniques are usually the main thing that we teach clients to do that dissociate. Now, these grounding techniques are good for anybody. My friend who's on here, who says she experiences panic when people talk to her, one of the best things you can also learn to do too is to learn to ground. So let's learn to ground right now. You guys ready? Okay. Grounding can be done using your physical senses: taste, touch, sight, smell. I think I might have forgotten one, but you know what they are, the 5 senses, okay? One of the easiest ones to do is to use your vision. So what does it feel like to dissociate? Sometimes it could feel like I'm floating. It can feel like I'm detaching from myself. It can feel like your brain is starting to go fuzzy. It can feel like you're starting to go numb. It can feel like you're having difficulty paying attention. It starts to feel like you're just kind of leaving yourself and you're leaving the present moment, okay? So when you start to recognize that that's happening, you can ground yourself. The grounding is also helpful, when you're starting to feel maybe very anxious, right? And you start to go like, I gotta do something to like just not let this escalate. Sight. Okay, guys, ready? Well, if you're driving, you can do this, but just keep your eyes mostly on the road. One way you can ground is you start to describe items in your surroundings. So think about what that's having you do. It's getting you in the present. It's getting you back here going, I'm here in this room right now. I'm safe. I'm on Instagram Live. There's nothing threatening around me, right? So you start to describe what you see. What do I see? I see a purple lamp with 2 circles and a white lampshade. I see this brown hair elastic that has some hair on it. I see my VAHDAM tea. It's in a white mug and it has like a light brown tea. I put milk in my chai today with a green thing. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just describing the things that I see in my environment, okay? Now, if you want to do that with your sense of touch, you would look for things in your environment, but you would hold them. So this is a piece of a shell, okay? So I would be doing this, and you can do it out loud, or if you're like, I'm in a meeting, Bianca, I cannot do this out loud right now. Okay, then you do it to yourself, right? So I would be holding this, and I would be going, ooh, this is a shell, and on one side it's smooth, and on the other side it's kind of like bumpy, and the temperature's kind of cool, right? So I'm using my sense of touch to describe an object. Now, what's great about this is you can do it anywhere, and you can do it without people knowing you're doing it. So you could be in a meeting and pick up a pen, right? You could be sitting at dinner and you could be like, okay, I've got this drink and like, this feels kind of warm and it's kind of smooth and, whatever. So then you use your sense of touch, okay, to do that. Another way you can use sight to ground is you can point out things by colors, okay? So you could be like, okay, I'm gonna look for everything red in the room. Okay, so there's like my laptop has some red stuff on it and like, let's see. Those hearts are red. Thanks for the hearts. That one thing on the people want to share my screen. So I have a little bubble there that's red. So, right, I'm actually describing what's on my phone right now because that's what's in my environment. You can choose a color, right? And you can just, you could just say to yourself, now I'm going to find everything green in my environment. And you're just going to go, there's a tree outside and there's this and there's that and the other thing. That's another way to ground. Let's see, you could also use your taste buds to ground. So you could get a lozenge, you could drink something, and you could then, again, start to describe it. What is the flavor? What is the texture? What is the temperature of this thing? Where do you taste the different flavors on your tongue? So you see, you're really getting mindful about what it is that you're experiencing in the moment. So sensory grounding is one of my favorite ways to ground. You can also ground with your thoughts. And one way to ground with your thoughts is to just say where you are, what's the date, what's the time, where are you located? So I would be like, okay, I'm Bianca Rodriguez. I think it's July. What day is it, guys? I'm not so much with the dates. I'm on vacation. It's July 18th. It's 11:30 a.m. I'm in Connecticut. I'm sitting in the loft. I don't know. The president is Joe Biden. I just ate yogurt for breakfast. Right? So you start to just think about things that are happening in the now. That's another way to ground yourself. And my favorite way to ground myself is mental grounding. Like what I just told you is another way that you mentally ground. My number one favorite way to ground is to make lists of, so what you would do is you would notice that you're starting to dissociate, right? You're starting to kind of leave your body. You're starting to get numb. You're starting to have trouble concentrating. And then what you can do is you can make a list of any topic. So you could do sports teams. You could do singers. You could do fashion designers. You could do candy. I like to do fruits and vegetables in a supermarket. I don't know why, but when I learned how to ground, this is my favorite one. So what I like to do is, I'm a very visual person. So if you're not a visual person, it's okay. You can still use this. But I like to envision myself going into a supermarket and being like, okay, there's potatoes, there's tomatoes, there's carrots, there's celery, there's bok choy, there's parsley, there's carrots, and I just start going through all of the fruits and all of the vegetables. And that's another way that you can sort of distract yourself from what it is that's activating you, that's making it so that you want to dissociate and get you back into the present. So what a great question. I'm so glad I got to share those tools with you. You can also look up grounding online. But let me say, if you are a person that is experiencing dissociation, that to me is an indication that there's trauma. And the best way to work with trauma is to see a therapist, see a psychologist, and to really heal the underlying traumatic memory, because avoidance is such a huge part of symptoms that come with trauma, which is literally what dissociation is. In the moment, you were leaving the situation to protect yourself, but in the now, it's not helpful to dissociate when you're in a business meeting, when you're, I don't know, with your family, like that. You don't need to dissociate anymore. So I would say try to find somebody to work with, okay? Unless you already are, in which case ask them about some grounding techniques. They should be teaching you those things. Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, we haven't even talked about depression yet. Let me know if you guys want to talk about depression. So let's see here. We have such nice comments about VAHDAM. I am with you. I love the green tea from VAHDAM. Somebody asked a question about teas for acidity and digestion. Unfortunately, I am not a clinical, I'm not a nutritionist. So I don't know, but maybe one of my friends here from VAHDAM can answer that question. What do they recommend? I know turmeric is very good for you for inflammation, but I don't know if that's good for acidity of the stomach. So we'll have to see. All right, let's see what other questions we have in here. Oh, thanks, my friend. Sure, you can learn all about my work just go to You Are Complete. So it's YOUARECOMPLETE on Instagram. That is also my website, and I just launched a new membership program primarily for women, to teach women how to move from a place of uncertainty. I think a lot of women struggle with feeling uncertain about their power, about their worth, about their ability to do hard things. And I think a lot of that is societal. And so I'm working to heal one woman at a time so that we can heal the world. And I'd love for you to check it out. But yes, You Are Complete is great. Can I get a job at VAHDAM? I don't know. VAHDAM, are you hiring right now? I don't know. My friends at VAHDAM are on here, but I am a VAHDAM ally. I do not work for VAHDAM, so I do not know. Okay, beautiful people, beautiful souls. What other questions do you have for me about anxiety or depression? I haven't talked about depression, so I was going to launch into that real quick for you. But I'm happy to go back to any topic that you please. Depression. What is depression? All right. Sadness. FYI, the dogs are barking. Oh, you're welcome, Maya's Ideas. Yes, I'm going to remember your name and I'm going to check you out next. Okay, so depression. Okay, sadness. Sadness, normal part of the human experience. Grief, normal part of the human experience. Depression, depression is different. Depression is characterized by feelings low mood, which could look like sadness, right? Lack of self-esteem, feelings of low self-worth, and not wanting to go out and do things, not wanting to take care of maybe the things in your house that you normally take care of, not feeling joy in anything. So depression is different than sadness, because depression, in order to be diagnosed with a depressive episode, you need to demonstrate these symptoms of depression that I've shared with you, along with some others, for at least a 2-week period where you feel like that every single day, right? And a big part of depression is thoughts of suicide. So, right, wanting to take your own life, wanting to end your own life. There's passive suicidal ideation, which means you just sort of feel like you don't want to exist anymore. But suicidal ideation can also be characterized as having a plan for taking your own life. And if you know somebody who is talking about ending their life, you want to take it seriously, because a lot of the time when people start talking about it, they really are in a very dark place, and they need professional help. Now, in the United States and the UK, I know that there are suicide prevention lifelines. So if this person has a therapist, you would be like, hey, I think you need to call your therapist. I'm really worried about your well-being. If they don't have a therapist, you want to say like, I'm really worried about you, and I really think you need to talk to somebody professionally. But don't try to handle it on your own. If you know somebody who's talking about ending their life, unless you're a trained medical person, a trained clinician, don't try to handle it on your own. Don't try to cheer them up. Don't try to say it's not that bad. It's not helpful to do that. You really want to take it very seriously, and you want to come from a place of love, and you don't want to get angry at them. That happens a lot in families, where it's like, oh, that's so selfish of you. Why would you want to take your own life? Guys, the only reason somebody wants to end their life is because they are in so much pain and suffering that feels like the only way to make it stop. That's literally it. Suicidality is characterized by helplessness. There's nothing I can do to make this better. Nothing. I've tried everything. Nothing I can do to make this better. Hopelessness, and it's never going to get better. I'm just going to live like this forever. So you feel trapped, and the only way to get out is to take your own life. So know that a person that is expressing not wanting to exist, expressing wanting to take their own life, they are at the bottom in a place of complete despair. And so you want to take that seriously, and you want to help them get help, because I have been a person who suffered from depression and has felt suicidal, and I have also helped many people in that space. And look, it got so much better. I haven't had thoughts like that in a decade, right? I mean, maybe longer, right? So you can heal from all of these things, right? And so the person that's feeling depressed doesn't know that feeling like how I feel now is even an option, right? So you want to help them get the help that they need, so that they can get to this place where they get to heal. And it's not easy. And I didn't go from feeling like I want to take my life to feeling like this. This is many, many years later, right? But you want to make sure they get professional help. Now, if a person is imminently looking like they're going to take their life, you just call whatever your country's either police station is or emergency medical is. In America, you call 911. You're like, this person is like, I'm worried they're going to take their life. Like, we have to keep them safe, because they can't even keep themselves safe. And they'll do what they call in the United States is a 5150. And 5150 basically means that somebody comes out and they have assessed that you are a danger to yourself, and they're going to contain you for a period of time so that you don't hurt yourself during that time. And so that is what I would recommend you do if something feels very imminent. Now, if you're a person who's on here who's like, oh man, I've got some suicidal stuff going on, go to mental health clinician immediately, but look online, do a Google search. Suicide prevention hotline in your country or your city. And I'm telling you, most countries have a free suicide prevention lifeline where you can call, you can talk to a trained person, so you don't have to feel so alone in this, and they will help you with the resources that you need, okay? So that's my PSA on suicidality. Take that shit seriously, because it's serious. Thank Oh, do I have such nice teeth? I drink a lot of VAHDAM tea. You know what's interesting is that tea can stain your teeth. So but I'm a teaholic and I'm not going to stop. I don't care. I'm never going to stop drinking tea. Never stop drinking VAHDAM tea. So what I do is I drink tea, but I also make sure I keep my teeth white by whitening my teeth. But I also live in Los Angeles where people are really obsessed with how they look. So it's part of the deal. But thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So sadness is one thing. Grief is one thing. You could be a person who's struggling with grief, which basically just means that, right, you've had a loss. Somebody died in your life. I don't even know. Somebody could have become disabled. You could have become disabled. Something where there's been a big loss. Your country could be in war. You could have lost all of your possessions in a fire, right? Grief comes with loss. You can be grieving and be experiencing depression because that was the kind of a pre-existing condition. But not all grief, even if you're like, oh my gosh, somebody died, right? And I didn't get out of bed for a week and I was really down. That can just also be grief. So those two things don't always happen at the exact same time. Now, if the grief is going on for a very long period of time, yeah, there could be depression also happening there. But yeah, depression is really characterized by low mood, really low mood, not finding joy in any activities, like anything that usually, like just feeling kind of like nothing, I don't want to do anything, I don't like anything anymore, I don't want to see I don't want to talk to anybody, right? Feelings of, not feeling good about yourself, low self-esteem, feeling unworthy, and suicidal ideation is a big one. And let me just look, I pulled this up on my computer earlier just to make sure I hit all the marks for you. And let me just see if there's anything I forgot. It could be weight loss, weight gain. Yeah, you're not moving, low energy, sometimes the inability to concentrate. I will say, you guys, when it comes to anxiety and depression, irritability is often a symptom of anxiety and depression. People don't often know that, especially in teenagers. Irritability can usually come with anxiety or depression, and also difficulty concentrating. And a lot of the time, in America, there was a big boom probably about maybe 20 years ago where everybody was getting diagnosed with what's called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. ADHD is right when you have difficulty concentrating, difficulty completing tasks. Often there's symptoms of restlessness. You can't sit in your seat. You're getting up. You're getting down, right? And those symptoms, you're irritable, a lot of those symptoms can also be a part of depression or anxiety. So I think a lot of folks were getting misdiagnosed or overdiagnosed with ADHD, and it could actually be underlying anxiety or depression. So if you're struggling with any of these things, I always say, go to somebody that you trust. And when it comes to finding a mental health professional, choose somebody that you gel with, This is a person that you're going to want to be vulnerable with, that you're going to want to feel safe with, that you're going to want to feel like you can tell the truth to. And so the first therapist that you go to, they may not be the therapist for you. You may have to find somebody else, and if you're working within a system where it's like you get what you get and that's it, you can always go to management, or you can always, I always say try to work on the relationship, tell the person like, hey, I'm not feeling that comfortable, or I feel like you're not understanding me. And, the therapist will try and work with you to make the relationship as helpful as possible. But once you've done that, if you're like, something is off here, that's okay. You can shop around. It's like interviewing for a job. You just take the first job somebody offers you if you have options. I get if you don't have options, you might have to take the first job offered to you because, you got to pay your bills, feed your family. But know that therapy is a relationship between you and the therapist. The therapist is not this all-knowing, powerful God, right? You have the answers within you. And if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, panic, worry, any of those things, know that it's because you're just not in alignment with your true self, that something is out of whack, something is not connecting within you, something needs to be healed within you, and that healing is possible. I have worked with the most horrific trauma you've ever witnessed. I've horrible things, And all those clients, I have walked them through their journey of healing, and they have come out the other side happy, powerful, empowered, brilliant, beautiful, wonderful. So that is possible for all of us. So don't ever give up on yourself. Don't ever give up on the people that you love, okay? So just so you know, if you have loved ones that you know struggle with anxiety and depression, try not to tell them what to do unless they're in so much pain, right? They're suicidal, they're self-sabotaging, they're self-harming. Then you gotta like jump in there and be like, hey, I'm really worried about you. You need professional help, right? But try not to tell them what to do. Don't tell people to get over it. Don't tell people to just be happy. Don't say good vibes only. That phrase should literally be taken out of our vernacular. You ain't gonna ever be good vibes only, people. You are a concoction of skin and bone and negative emotions and positive emotions and intensity and fluidity and all the things. You are complex beings. So you're never anything all of the time. And that's the beauty about feelings, is that even if you're feeling something, it's not going to last forever. It's like the tides of the ocean. The waves come in and the waves go out. So remember that too, that you're not going to feel a certain way forever, even if you feel like you've been feeling that way for a long time. But you do need to take action if you are feeling really badly and having difficulty maintaining your relationships, functioning in your job, taking care of your family, being the person that you want to be. Anything's getting in the way of that, know that it is okay to seek help, and that there's many people just like me out there who are ready and willing and excited and honored to be of service. Yes. Okay, friends, I'm going to sign off unless you have any more questions for me. I'm going to give you a sec. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I've been licensed 15 years. I've worked with every diagnosis ever you could imagine. I've worked in psychiatric hospitals. I've worked in rehabs. There's no bad question. There's no wrong question. There's no stupid question. So if you have a question, throw it in here before I sign off. This is going to be my last live regarding mental health with VAHDAM for this season. I know I'm going to keep seeing them because they are my homies over at VAHDAM. But this is going to be the last Sunday live that I'm going to do as part of the Be Well series. So if there's anything in your heart, anything on your mind that you're like, oh, I kind of want to ask her about this, then throw it down. Throw it in the comments. Okay? I'm here for you. Okay, we got a friend here who's dealing with organic herbs, powders, and tea bag cut. Okay, that might be something for VAHDAM, for the folks that work over at VAHDAM to look into. Any other questions about mental health? If you don't know me and you just met me, I'm so happy to meet you. I always think that there's a reason why you come into contact with certain people when you come into contact with them. So check me out at You Are Complete. I like to go very, very deep into the spiritual and the psychological. And so I go live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you can always come and find me there. Oh, this is a great question. How to live with a cheating partner. Woo, that's tough. Did they know that you know that they're cheating? That's an important question to know. Okay. Well, okay. You guys you're probably not going to like this. Okay. Relationships. Whatever is going on in your relationships, especially your relationship with your partner, right, is 50-50. I know. I have people be like, what if my partner's cheating? What if my partner's a drug addict? I'm like, well, you still there. That's part of your part in it, right? So I think, okay, you're not ready to give up yet. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Okay. Has the cheating been brought into the room, so to speak? Does your partner know that you know that they're cheating? And has there been a dialogue about it? Now, if there hasn't been a dialogue about it, there needs to be a dialogue about it, right? You need to bring it forward and say, hey, okay, you caught him and he said he's guilty. Okay, so then you get to ask him, why? What is it about? What do you think is the reason that you decided to go outside of our relationship to get your needs met, right? I mean, that's really, you guys, when it comes to cheating, usually a person their needs are not getting met. Now, is cheating a healthy adult way to handle your needs not getting met in your relationship? No, it's not a healthy way. But people do the best that they know how to do, right? Okay, so he was saying he was bored of life. Okay, so that is probably a personal issue that he needs to work on, right? Because if you're feeling bored of life, my mom used to say to me, people who get bored are boring people. But she's incredibly creative and always finds things to do. So, oh, well, thank you. I love you back, Robin. So what I would say is, I would say, well, that sounds like something that needs to be worked on. Are you willing to work on that? And if the person is like, yeah, I'm willing to work on that. I don't want to do that. Like, do they feel remorseful about the cheating? Do they realize that that was something that they don't want to keep doing? Do they realize that there's a problem and that they want to try and remedy the problem? I mean, that's really the thing, is that in your relationships, you're going to have issues with people. And a lot of the time it's about the person sort of taking accountability for their issue and then doing something, right? And then taking action. And it may take time for them to take the action, right? And so you sort of do have to sort of wait and sort of see what happens. But that would mean that the person is taking accountability. They are willing to try and make it better. Is it fair to think the other person is at fault just by hearing one side of the story? This is not great. Okay, I'll go back to that. So, I mean, I think it really depends on how they're sort of showing up, right? Because people do make mistakes and people do things that hurt us. But I think it's about, like, is he coming into it and just say, like, So if you've been cheated on a lot of times by him or by other people, then I would say that's interesting for you to look at and go, what is it about me that continues to attract, engage in relationships with people that cheat on me? What is that about me, right? Oftentimes it has to do with what you're comfortable with. So did you grow up in an environment where people were cheating on each other, people were not honoring each other, people were not honoring each other's boundaries, right? So for you, I would say, for you to seek professional help, that would be one of the most important things for you to do, to go, you know what? This is a pattern in my life and I need to figure out why. Why do I keep ending up in the same place again and again and again? And I don't want to be here anymore, right? I don't want to be here anymore. So usually that takes, if this is something that you're maybe used to, maybe it's bringing up some kind of childhood trauma experience, right? Or maybe it's what you sort of feel like it's all you're worth, right? So you're willing to put up with it. There's some deep work that needs to go on there where you get to go, like, I can't do, like, I gotta stop attracting this person and I need to start setting boundaries with this person because this is not okay with me. This is not okay with me anymore, right? So I would say that, yes, the best thing you can do is, if this person has expressed taking accountability, remorse, and a willingness to work on themselves and work on the relationship, then I say, okay, give yourself maybe a timeline. Like, let's do, you hit the nail on the head, my friend. I was just about to say that. Okay. But let me just finish this off. Let's give ourselves, whatever, till the end of the year. Let's give ourselves a year. Let's give ourselves 6 months, whatever. It depends on where you are in the process. Some people are like, I got 90 days with it in me. Like, I need to see action in like the next 90 days or I can't do this anymore. Wherever you are, you sort of set the timeline and then you wait, you let them do the work and then you do your work. Or if you've said, let's go to couples therapy together, then you find the therapist and you go and you do the work. But yes, okay. Cheating, it's very interesting because oftentimes people just look at the person who went outside of the relationship like, oh, they're bad and they have the problem and they did this, the other. Look, it's not stellar behavior, but it usually comes from somewhere. And if you're a smothering person, my friend, will you do me a favor? Will you go to coda.org, codependenceanonymous.org. Controlling is a symptom of codependency. Coda is free. Coda is one of the best resources. I know it is a 12-step program, but go there. There's a list of patterns and characteristics of folks that struggle with codependency, and controlling behaviors is one of them. And go through that list and see if you identify with more of those things than not. Check out a CODA meeting. It has changed the lives of so many people that I know. I'm actually going to do a workshop on codependency within my membership program. I just recorded it this week with a colleague of mine who is really wonderful at codependency. So you can check me out at youarecomplete.com. I have a membership program that is just for women to help women feel empowered. And it seems like that could also be something. Yeah. I think it's coda.org, but check out Codependence Anonymous. Even if you Google that, it'll come up, but I think it's coda.org. So yes, so controlling is a way that we practice codependency, and codependency is basically, I need you to be okay for me to be okay. I need other people. I'm going to focus on everybody else being okay with me, okay with themselves. And I'm going to take on that as a responsibility. And so, a lot of people think that codependency just looks like sort of being sort of the doormat type person, but it can also be somebody who's also very controlling, because codependency is a condition of extremes. You could either be very avoidant and sort of kind of let people dominate you, or you could be very domineering, and you go back and forth a lot of the time between those two things. So like our friend is like, I'm dating this person, or I'm with this person who's treating me badly, but I'm also like in this crazy kind of like, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you got to do what I got to do. And it's like, woo! And it's very painful to live like that, my friend. So check out Codependence Anonymous. Yep. I know, girl. I got you. There's help. There is help. You don't get the help. You don't need to keep living in that. And what happens is you pass these patterns down to your kids, right? You just unconsciously pass them down to your kids. Okay. I have time for this. Is it fair to think that the other person is at fault just by hearing one side of the story? This is not Draco, I'm just asking. So here's the thing. I work, right? I often never hear both sides of the story, right? Because I work primarily with individuals, but yeah, there's always two sides of the story. And then what's funny is when I do have a client's partner or mother or family member come in, I'm always like, that's interesting. They didn't portray this person the way that I'm experiencing them at all. So what I usually do is, I don't know if you noticed in my conversation, is I didn't focus that much on her partner that's cheating, and I'm not villainizing her partner that's cheating. I'm mostly like, you know what, girl, I think you got the problem, because that's all you can focus on. All you can focus on in your life is what you're doing. That's it. What other people are doing, it's not really your business. There's three types of business: your business, other people's business, God, source, the universe, higher power, whatever you believe in is business. Your job is just to take care of yourself and your reactions. I will say though, having been doing this for years and years and years, right? There's always two sides to the story, and it always takes two people to create a messed up dynamic, whatever that messed up dynamic is. So I don't even need to meet the partner. I don't even need to meet your mother to go like, yeah, there's probably something that they're doing in the relationship too, right? But that is not your business. And it's not going to help you to focus on what they're doing, what they're not doing. Because when you point a finger outward, you got three fingers pointing back at you. When you're blaming somebody else, right? That's not helpful, right? You're not in your power when you're blaming somebody else. There's nothing you can do about somebody else's behavior, right? The only thing you can do is look at your own behavior and how you are contributing to a situation. So it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, right? I mean, unless somebody's is being oppressed or, harmed, or it's a child, right? Then you got to step in there and go like, okay, I got to say that this is wrong. I have to stand up for them. But ultimately, unless it's an extreme like that, it's really up to you to just look at yourself. So that's kind of why somebody will come to me with an issue about somebody else. And I always say, well, it takes two to make this happen. So let's look at you and what you're doing. And I don't really focus on the partner or the other person, because I don't know them. and they're not in the room. They're not in the room to say their point of view. So I think you make a very good point, my friend, and I'm very grateful you're here. Oh my God, it's 12 o'clock already. It's time to go. Friends, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. It has been an honor to speak with you. VAHDAM, I love you. You know I love you. I cannot wait to come to India and just visit VAHDAM and go through their tea estate. I am just so excited to do that. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's a dream, and I feel like it's going to happen soon. And everybody else, if you... Oh gosh, darn, you got another... Okay, I'm going to answer one more question, and then I'm going to stop. How do you... Okay, absolutely. Love adding to that. How do you, a person, move on from a relationship? Oh, how do you move on from a difficult relationship? My friend, you are gentle with yourself. You are very gentle with yourself. Grief and loss takes time. It just takes time to process. So don't force yourself. Don't force yourself to meet somebody else or to do anything that you're not ready to do. I will say, I usually recommend when you have left a relationship or a relationship has ended that you make a note, make a list in your phone, in your journal of all of the reasons why the relationship did not work. Because what happens is, as we start to move away from the relationship and whatever was conflictual in the relationship, we often have a tendency to really just remember a lot of the good stuff, especially when you're sort of missing the person or feeling lonely. And it's okay to miss a person. It's normal to miss a person, even if they weren't toxic, even if they weren't that good to you, because you have created a connection with that person. So don't beat yourself up if you miss somebody who you're like, this person was such a jerk. Like, why do I still miss them? Like, that's okay. Be gentle with yourself, right? But write down, sorry, my dogs are going super crazy right now. Somebody must be outside. Write down all the reasons why the relationship didn't work, so that when you're feeling that way and you're like kind of romanticizing what happened, you don't go back and call the person or reach out to the person or maybe think, maybe I shouldn't have broken up with them. Maybe we should be together. It's just like a reminder that's like, oh yeah, that's right. This relationship wasn't right for me. And know that you learned and you grew in every relationship, and not every relationship is meant to last forever. Most relationships are not meant to last forever. That's friendships, work colleagues, friends. Our culture is very strange in that it feels like unless you're friends with somebody since you're like forever, you're married for 50 years, it's like you failed. It's like, you never failed. You learned. What did you learn? What do you want to be different? Right? Moving forward. And then take that time to heal and to integrate the experience and to maybe journal, or maybe you go to therapy, or maybe you go to group therapy and you talk about it. But really just take the time. Take the time that you need, right? You don't need to don't ever try to force things, guys. You don't need to force things. Life is evolving. You're evolving, whether you want to evolve or not. You're usually in pain or discomfort because you're not allowing yourself to evolve. You're just trying to stay where I'm at. And it's like, that's not natural. What's natural is you're moving, you're growing, you're expanding. Everything in the world is expanding. You're like a flower. You don't yell at a flower to grow. It just blossoms when it's time. So be gentle with yourself. And you know what? Really start to, a lot of the time in relationships, especially a lot of women will lose themselves in the relationship. So I would say, if there's anything you've always wanted to do, really work on cultivating your relationship. Lyle, stop! Sorry. Really cultivate your relationship with yourself. So maybe there's things that you used to love to do that you haven't been doing, or something you've always wanted to do, right? Falling in love is really just about recognizing all of the positive aspects in another person. And you could fall in love and there doesn't even need to be somebody else there. It's about falling in love with yourself. So noticing the positive aspects, the things that you like about yourself, the things that light you up. Focus on that. And that will be the energy that you send out to attract somebody else, which is the energy that you want to feel when you're with somebody else. But you cannot transmit what you haven't got. So it's an inside job, okay? All right, guys, I'm really going this time because my dogs are going bananas. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. I loved all your questions. I love talking about these things that are most important. They're always on my heart. Our wellness, our well-being, our expansion, our healing, all of those things. Let's end the stigma around mental health. If you talk about it, you give other people permission to talk about it. And when you shine, your light gives everybody else around you permission to do the same. So please join me at You Are Complete. I love talking to people on Instagram. I go live every Thursday at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I answer your questions on there. I have a free self-love journal. I would love for you to go check out my link in bio. It's a beautiful journal you can download today and start working on those questions to cultivate that love for yourself and to remember how brilliant and wonderful and magnificent you are. Okay. Hearts to you guys. And if nobody told you today, I hear you. I see you. I love you, and you matter. Thanks, VAHDAM. Thanks, everybody. Bye.